All right, guys, we are in it with none other than Denny Hamlin. Thanks for joining us here on Stacking Pennies.
Thanks for coming.
On a bit of a media tour this week. Any reason in particular?
No, it's coincidence. Yeah, it was interesting. I talked to Brett for a little bit. Dale Jr. has been pushing me to go on the DBC for a little bit, and then I talked to you, and of course this is a good opportunity for me to chat about racing.
Well, you don't show your face very often in the media, besides at the racetrack, right? So I feel like the fans are going to get a little treat here today. We both listened to Ryan and I listened to the Door Bumper Clear podcast. It was actually quite good, so I didn't want to cover the same questions.
Right.
I wanted to get into a lot of the, whether it be future trajectory of the sport, 2311, got a lot of good stuff going on. We're talking to your driver here later in the show that we're excited about.
He's not mine yet. Although if you look at the news today, holy cow, who knows anymore?
Dude, with Fernando, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, there's another guy, I guess, that
Oscar.
Yes.
With McLaren and something.
Yes, yeah. The team announced he's going F1 racing. He says, "No, I'm not."
I can assure you that if you're an owner of a team, you're reading the fine print on a lot of your deals.
Man, what a domino that's fell over the last month or so.
Well, first off, let's just softball. What were your thoughts at Indy?
I mean, I don't know. I feel like we kind of got we react as a sport. We really do react. And when you see, I remember when you look at like Jeff Gluck's polls, right? If you would have gone back 3 years ago, the answers to most of the good races were all on the road courses. We love the road courses. We love the road courses. We hate intermediates. It's whatever. And now this year you look and it's like, I don't know, most of the bottom ones are road course races. And what's interesting, because we've been selling that, hey, this car is better for road course racing, which it is, So it's just interesting that it's just the ebbs and flows of the sport of like, what the people want, and we try to give it to them, and the next thing you know, they don't like it, and it's just we gotta just try to find the right balance. But if we go to that historic facility, man, it just seems like it needs to be a wine and cheese, nice, like it's not about the racing. I think that Brett actually brought that up, was that like it's the people come at 400,000 for the Indy 500. They come back for the same drivers and the same cars, and they run a different course, and it's a quarter of that or less. So it's more about the event than it is the actual racing. And I wish sometimes we wouldn't be so critical of our sport for the actual racing, because it is about the prestige of winning the Brickyard. It's not supposed to be a side-by-side battle to the finish,
Right. Fastest man on the fastest.
It's such a balance of like, you got to have horsepower,
pit crew,
downforce, strategy, like it just low drag. It's just a mix of like teams bring their A games. It doesn't matter whether you have this next gen car or whatever. Teams are going to bring their best to Indy.
No, there's a reason why if you won that race, obviously Jimmy Johnson won it like 4 times and he won the championship. But if you won that race, you were a strong, contender for the championship that year because it took a full team. But
right.
I think the big question is, like, I watched last night. It was on Greatest Races, like 94 or 96 there with Ernie Irvin and Jeff Gordon going at it. But more importantly, the stands were full. So I think we're chasing to fill the grandstands there, and what does that look like? But also I think a lot of the easy answer that people say is, let's bring the ORP. Well, is our premier – I felt like when I first got in the Cup Series, one of the big things that you look forward to on just being on a Cup team was that you got to go to Indy.
Yeah.
The Xfinity guys didn't get to go there. It was like exclusive, and it took a lot to get there. So, like, is our top series – is it – I love short track racing. Has it outgrown?
Such a great point, because I think we have a spot in our schedule for the sweetheart racetracks, the Martinsvilles, that like you don't have to have grand suites and huge hospitalities. That's its own niche, right? But when you go to Indy, we're going the wrong way on the bricks. Like we're going the wrong way. So it just feel like that. It doesn't matter about the racing itself. The same amount of people have turned out for the road courses it has the oval. That's, the track confirms that. I think the battle will be, you're going to have to put us on a different weekend, but I just don't know whether there's been an agreement between the series and Roger to say we're going to have a doubleheader with Indy. and Indy's obviously going to be on the road course, and we can't just change the track over. So they'd have to do something with the schedule to make us go back.
So there's the track piece, but I also wanted to get into the competition piece a bit. You've started your career. What was your rookie season?
06.
So you've seen the trend from 06 till 2022. At what point did you see a tangible shift in the respect that drivers shown each other?
Oh, wow. Oh, man. 5 years ago, maybe? I think it probably changed about 5 years ago. I don't know what event or whatever, but it's starting to be pretty crazy now. Like, we're just, I mean, I watched, some of the replays of those restarts, and the wreck that happened at third place starts at 20th.
Yeah.
And it's that guy driving in there with no regard for anything and just keeps going and keeps pushing until he causes something.
Right.
And that is what's so disturbing about it.
How do you deter it?
Well, you're on the same chat I am. Single file restarts is probably the answer. I don't know that is what NASCAR wants. I mean, listen, when we were under green before the caution came, you had track cars all over the racetrack. 10th place was 40 seconds back. So
right.
What is really the problem in putting them 10 car lengths back? I don't see that as a big deal. So, I mean, until we can act like adults, they're going to have to do, they don't have to do anything. They could just kind of watch us and laugh. But
yeah.
I don't know that we really want to be, laughed at in that instance. And it's us. It's, it's not the course's fault or anything like that. It's either that, move the start-finish line down.
Deeper into the one.
Deeper in, so you're not getting such a big run in there and a disparity of slow speed to fast speed.
So when you say single-file restarts, would you just be track-dependent? Because like you're saying single-file restarts just at Indy? Or would you look at it? Because I remember when we went to double-file restarts, it definitely made it more exciting.
They changed the rules in the middle of the Bristol dirt race.
Yeah.
Single file restarts. So
it still didn't help with last lap chaos.
I think we can do about anything we want.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's an old story of Bill France Sr. changing the rules in Victory Lane.
Yeah.
Says you have to have a shirt in Victory Lane. Guy's like, doesn't say anything about that. Grabs a pencil, writes must-wear shirt in Victory Lane, and there you go.
Man, he needs to revoke that rule.
Yeah,
Corey would have a heyday showing off all that chest hair,
A lot of man meat underneath this shirt containing. All right, that's enough about Indy because we can go down a rabbit hole that I don't want to get down to. But you were nice enough to give me a ride up to Pocono when I needed it. And I asked you a question right before we got off because I think about this often. And the question I framed to you was, does Denny Hamlin reach the potential that he is currently as a race car driver if he's in a middle to lower tier system when he gets to the Cup Series?
Middle to lower tier system. So in other words,
the thought was sparked because I asked you to shift points, we get down to third gear or whatever, and you pulled up just one little bit you showed me, but there was 19 different spreadsheets of driver information that you had, and I'm like, holy shit, what is all this stuff? And we got off the plane and carried on.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, that's evolved, and I think it's a team-by-team basis. Ultimately, you have to have people employed that compile all the information that drivers get at the big teams. Certainly, that's just a matter when we talk on the TV about resources. That's what we're talking about. Resources is not just money; it's people, and you got to have people to be able to put all that together. And some of that comes from your manufacturer, some of it comes from in-house. But I honestly feel pretty confident that like my career resurged, in 2019 when we started to put more of an emphasis on give me more information because I'm just that's what makes me tick. I'm a very analytical person. I dive into where I can be better as a driver in every aspect. It's probably why you see me speeding on the pit road so much because I'm trying to make sure I'm doing my job to the best of my ability. Now, we can really argue about, what are the times, what are the important times that it really doesn't matter when you speed versus others. I mean, I thought I saw online I had like 27 penalties on pit road, and I'm thinking, no way, I didn't have that. There's no way I had that many. Well, a lot of them come during, like, when I have a crash stop.
Yeah.
I'll intentionally push lights and things like that to find where my limits are for future information.
Right.
So, to answer your question, though, I know I went a really long way around that circle, but No, I don't believe so. And I've said this on that Netflix doc that with Bubba and the team, that I truly don't believe that I'm a top-tier talent in our sport. I just think that I've been blessed with really good work ethic that was instilled by my parents when I got a go-kart in a race car, and they didn't hire people to go work on it and fix it. And he's like, this is not my hobby. This is your hobby. It's you go out there, you fix it, you work on it. You change the oil, whatever it might be. The work ethic there, and then the work ethic to look at my peers and say, what can I do to be better as a driver? What can I take from Roy Hendrick or Eddie Johnson in the short track ranks to like, wow, Eddie was one of those guys that was just amazing that he always used to just let people pass him for the first 50 laps, and then the last 50, here he comes, and he's got more tires than everybody else and just blows by him. I love that, so I emulated my driving style by doing that. So I just try to take little bits from information that I've saw, and I've just really fed off of the information that I get. Now, my team, Joe Gibbs Racing versus someone like Spire, they don't have the resources to get those people to look through the data to give you a quick answer of whatever. It's going to probably be on you to go have to figure it out. And I don't know whether you have enough hours in the day. Right. So it certainly is the new age type of racing that we're in now that, you probably see it on the pit crew. There's no way y'all look at, analytics and things 5, even 10 years ago like you do now, right? It's just another world.
Yeah.
You said it's a new age sport, and we were talking about on the way down here, and you had a pretty good way of framing the question of if you were a 12, 13-year-old kid racing a front wheel driver, late model, doing all you can, how do you get to where you are as a Cup Series driver? Now, because you can speak as a driver, but also now an owner of what you're looking for.
It's harder now than ever.
Well, the world was a lot different when you did it too.
Well, I was so lucky. I came in here when FedEx, Coors Light, Interstate Batteries, Target, all these companies, there were open rides in the Cup Series, and they were just reliant on the team to say, all right, who's our driver?
Right.
That's another world from where we're at today, right? Because I think there's just so many different sponsorship opportunities in other sports now. I think I saw in Sports Business Journal there's 3,200 open sponsorship opportunities for a company to go and invest in sports as marketing. So it used to be that NASCAR and the Cup Series was their avenue, and because they didn't used to have patches on NFL or NBA uniforms anymore. Now it's MLS. They're selling their jerseys. So there's just so many different things. They're selling arena names. There's just a lot of different avenues. So it's not that our sport has lost value in what the sponsors get. It's just so many more options now.
Yeah.
Well, how do you, as an owner, how do you take that model and shift it to something that could work? We have the old NASCAR model, and that's worked, but how do we shift it to something that can help grow a new team or help smaller teams get more sponsors? Is there a way that we can do that?
You have to charge them less. You have to charge the sponsors less. That's just kind of the only way that you're going to get more and more influx of new sponsors coming in. But ultimately right now, the reason that the top teams have to charge what they do is because they have so much legacy payroll and things that they got to pay for, that's what the net zero number is. And so that's kind of why it is the way it is. But hopefully if this car, like we hope, brings the cost of competition down, certainly I know Joe Gibbs Racing has shrunk their staff, considerably. If that continues, then certainly that's a good thing from the team financial point. But is that a good thing that, there are people that are potentially going to lose their jobs in that?
But could that then open up other teams? If the cost is lower, you have more teams that then those folks can find jobs.
Yes, because, it just depends on what kind of sponsor you're dealing with. Some of them deal with, all I care about is how much my logo is on TV. That's all I care about. Others say, all I care about is I want to host hospitality at this race. And some care about it all. And so they have to activate it in other ways. Hey, I want to make sure I have a tent out in the midway. There's just so many different avenues to it. I think our sport at times is very, very complicated with what rights a sponsor really has when he goes and he sponsors a team. Well, can I host out in the Midway, or does somebody have a conflicting sponsor and doesn't allow me to do it? I think that that's something that we definitely could do better as a sport, is consolidating our rights to figure out when you get into this sport and you sponsor NASCAR, we want to make sure that you're getting your value, right? And would love to see if there was an opportunity for NASCAR to go get sponsors, and then they get a placement on everyone's car and everyone shares in that revenue.
So if there's a 9-year-old kid, I'll bring it back to the original question, and I like the direction that went down, because the business model is what's prohibiting teams from finding young guys and developing them.
Right.
But if you're 9 years old, 10 years old, what steps do you take and position yourself? I know it's situational, and everybody's hand of cards different and how you play them. But if you had a 8-year-old kid right now, how do you turn him into be a Cup driver?
Well, there's also another part to that question, because you're an owner that's going to hire one of these kids one day.
Right.
And when you were doing it, we all went to the tracks and saw a Gibbs development late model team.
That's how I got signed.
So is it even worth developing people? Like, I see it on, obviously you just did it, where you, instead of developing somebody, you go and get the best young prospect. And I see it on the pit crew side. Instead of taking 5 years to develop a pit crew, you just go buy the best guys. I mean, Brad did it, right? And it's been done. How do you want to do it? Do you want to develop guys and keep them, or do you just want to go pay the money up front and get the best guys and win right now? So that's what's hard. How do you become that young guy?
It depends on your short and long-term goals, I guess, right? But to answer your question, I don't know the proper answer to that, because I know what I want them to do, right? I want them to be able to – you hate to have to limit your talent pool based off of whether they have resources or their family has money. That is not the best way to do this. But that's kind of how it is in the lower ranks right now. But, you know, I think there's instances where you're starting to see, and I think you will see in the Cup Series, if we can get the model shifted slightly, I think that you'll see us start to invest in the young more and more, because I think that that's the best avenue, because we're seeing it now that people are starting to get rides that aren't bringing money to the table. That's a good thing. That is a really good thing. Now I'm not putting all these pay-to-play drivers in a pool saying they all stink and they're no good, because there are really good ones that you can't help it. They can't help it that they've, you know, their family has done well and their family believes in them and wants to back them. Right. My parents did, but our level was late model racing, and there was nothing past that. We couldn't do anything more, but they sold out to get me to that opportunity, and then I had to have somebody else take me along and take me to the rest of the way. I hope that we can get back there, and I'm starting to see signs of that starting to shift in our sport, where the young talent that is proving themselves beyond results, you know, you can see talent beyond results, is starting to get a shot.
So I got a direction. I was away from racing,
I think.
Kind of. So you kind of hinted at it, of when your parents went all in and sold out to just continue to keep the boat floating right down the river. There's always watershed moments of, like, winning a race or this guy helping you out, like when you weren't going to go to the racetrack that week and then you end up winning the race. Like, what is a watershed moment in your career that you can look back and, like, that's the difference?
That's it. That was the moment, that for sure. It came from Jim Dean, who was my late model car owner back in the day, and I ran for my parents. You know, they spent all their life savings on me a new car from Rick Townsend, and I ran and probably won 3 races in the first year. Now, I finally had a good car. Now, I couldn't run top 5 in my, you know, the car I had before in late model. I just was I always qualified well. I could get speed out of the car, but then my car just wasn't any good, and I'd fall straight back. Finally got a car, and then, you know, there's something about Jim Dean, something that he saw in me. He overheard me saying that this is my last race, I'm out, and we're going to sell everything. My parents going to try to get some of their money back because we're in financial trouble. And he just approached me and said, you know, listen, you know, tell your parents, you know, to hang on. Why don't you drive for me this weekend? I drove for him, and he had the best of best equipment. I went out there and dominated the race, and he says, all right, tell your parents, sell it all, and you're going to just drive for me next year. And that's when I won 25 out of 35 races. Gibbs then calls and says, we want to buy your equipment for their new diversity team with Reggie White. They invited me and Mark McFarland out to, help test and find their young talents, which was the Eric Almirolas of the group that we identified as good drivers. And, Mark McFarland, is as equal or good as talent as I was. And I think he was having a disagreement with his girlfriend that day and was on the phone the whole time. And I jumped in the car, ran blistering fast laps, and they were like, we're going to sign you.
Love that. Well, and obviously your career, similar to a lot of guys, has been on the national stage from the time you've been a rookie to where it is now. But I don't think the confidence and the mental aspect is where Stacking Pennies originates from, just small victories to keep yourself motivated, continue to try to get better each and every week. That's where the motto comes from, not necessarily money. So I was curious to you, because you don't seem very shy in confidence, but that's also from an outside persona. How do you, when you're going through a lull, when you go through a winless little drought or spout, whatever that may be, like, what do you lean back on to try to just figure it out?
I don't know. I mean, I have those weeks. This week, I mean, it was just absolutely horrible. I couldn't make a turn. And then I remember, I won the week before. Well, technically or untechnically. I'm not really sure. Unofficially.
Yeah.
But it's just, I have to realize, and I knew going into the weekend, like, we're struggling as a company on road courses, small victories, somewhere in the top 10. And, I get out there on the first couple laps and lose my mind, and I'm all over the place. And I know I'm all over the place, and I'm just like, what? I'm saying in the car, what are you doing? Like, you're missing apexes. You're all over the place. And then it just all compounds, and your day just gets worse and worse and worse. And I'm just thinking after this race, I'm like, wow, that's top 5 most embarrassing races I've ever had. And I've had some doozies in my day. But in the end, I still know that I'm on top of my game, is that if I know that our team is bringing a fast car, there's no question that I can be the best of our manufacturer and our team. And I know that I'm racing with really, really good talent with Kyle Busch and Martin Truex. And on most weeks, if we don't make mistakes, we're the 11 team is usually on top. So that's what gives me the confidence, even on weeks like last week, that, listen, we're going to go to Michigan and probably have a great shot to win.
Right.
It's more important this year than ever, because you can run 27th one week and be winning the next week. Or even in your case, the Coke 600 wasn't a great race for you guys, right? And you just plugged along and you find yourself in position. That's what it's all across the board.
That's what we don't do well as the 11 team. We had a long meeting before the race started. It's just like, and Chris is very objective when he talks about what are we capable of. And he says, we've been together for 120 something races. 600
career starts, by the way, this past week.
Yeah, thank you. Oh, it's amazing. It's the 600.
That's a big number.
I know. And he says, and he objectively writes down every week, what is our capability? And we have been capable of winning 41% of our starts. We should have 40 wins. We've only won 17 times together in our 127 starts. But 40 times we were absolutely, legitimately capable of winning, and over half the time, we stepped on ourselves in some way, shape, or form.
But to Corey's point, to start the year, people were counting you out of the playoffs, right?
Yeah.
Truly, we're not that far away.
I think Bob asked me if I was going to stay in the top 30.
Yeah, like that.
Said, if I don't stay in top 30, I'm not. My job is in serious danger.
Well, when I think it was like Atlanta, it was like fourth, sixth race of the year. I look over and I'm like, the 20 and the 11 behind me in points. I'm like, oh. Like something sideways here. Obviously, though, your ticket is well punched to the playoffs. You talked about winning the possibility of winning 41% of the races you've entered. How do you win the last one?
Such a great question, and I wish I had the answer. We've been in the Final Four for 3 years in a row. The first year, they put a big old giant piece of tape on my car. I was running Kyle down, and Chris thought that this is going to put us over the edge. They did some wind tunnel information.
Couple laps too early.
We were like, this is going to add X amount of downforce because you're a little tight anyway. You're going to fly by him and
blow up at the start finish line.
I mean, It was placed in the wrong place on the car. But, you know, it was big, and it was planned on being big, but it was only supposed to go on a certain section of the nose.
So it's Shippy's fault.
Man, tape's still.
I'm not really sure.
You just hired him to run your pit crews. You know?
I know.
You
I
blame
know.
it on him.
I'm not
Tape,
sure.
man.
I think it was Chippy, actually. But, I mean, it's something they didn't practice, and so that's part of it. But so the first one, we were running down Kyle. We put on a big piece of tape, and I essentially get blown up. I had to come back in. And then the year after that, we were beat before we got there. I mean, my mom rode actually in a plane with Coy, and it's like, we have no shot. Like, our cars on the short tracks, we're not fast enough. If you looked, and this is when David Smith had all of his analytics, like on the short tracks, we were, I think, ranked 12th or 13th fastest on short tracks that year. It was when we were great on intermediates, but just none of our teams were fast on short tracks. And so we showed up there and ran 4th, which is better than we ran all year long, but it just, we didn't have enough. And then last year, I mean, damn, in a good spot again. I'm running down Truex with 20-something laps to go, and David Starr wrecks. And I come in the pits, and, you know, Kyle Larson's
Five had a
team
heater.
kills it.
Well, it's nice because you said this last week. We had a conversation, and this is why your racing IQ is a lot higher than most. You said, well, if we had a better pit stall and I qualified better, that wouldn't have happened.
No doubt. Yeah, I think that the easy knee-jerk reaction and that did happen is that we'll never get beat by not have the fastest pit crew again. It was like, well, if we worked on our car speed, we would qualify first. That's a free half a second at least. So, and we lost the lead off pit road by that much over the 5. So,
does it wear on you hearing that?
I mean, I don't think about it day to day. I think about it when people bring it up. It gets towards the end of the season. Certainly, I certainly get extra motivated to, hey, let me prove you wrong. But, I mean, I'm going to be fine without it. My life will not change. I mean, I talk to Mark Martin quite a bit, you know, here and there whenever I see him, and he's like, you know, it doesn't change my life one bit. Like, it's fine. And honestly, too, and I don't want to douse any of our past champions over the last few years because they are all very worthy and they won it. But the champions crowned differently than it used to. It's a one race. You got to win one race, and so it's just putting the whole season together. Now, I think making the Final Four is a show of you put together a really good season. What happens in that final race is just you better have a fast car and you better have things go your way.
What year was it you went to Homestead against the 48 in the old system?
2010.
People forget, it's so funny how quickly people forget about how good that 48 team was then and how strong Jimmy was.
They executed like they just would wait on you to make a mistake.
And wear away at you.
And just wear on you, right? And then back then, I was faster than Jimmy.
Yes.
There is no question. We were faster than him most weeks. But, I mean, you just think about you have one hiccup, one bad week, because it was a 10-week playoff system where all 10 weeks counted in your points. We'd have one bad week, and he just kept chugging along, 5th, and I'd 1st, 10th, 1st, 15th. And you're thinking, and you're like, oh, he's having a bad day. He's going a lap down. And then next thing you know, he gets his lap back, and he finishes right under a bumper. And it was demoralizing. Like, I didn't gain on him like I should have. And then when we had him by the, what's at Phoenix, and we ran out of gas, just, that one hurt me. And I just couldn't get over it for Homestead. And I remember locking myself in a hotel room saying, I'm just going to concentrate. I'm going to do all my work, and I'm not going to go to dinner with anyone. I'm just going to focus on racing. And that was the absolute worst thing I possibly could have done. From that point on, I'm like, forget that. If I want to stay up to 1 a.m. night before, I don't care, because that's what I do. Yeah. And so, and I just think that I just took myself way too seriously that first time around.
You're also going against a guy who's done it 5 times at the chance.
No question.
5 in a row. So yeah, I think people miss that fact about how good Jimmy was.
I know.
I just think it's weird that dude, people forget that Jimmy Johnson, like that to me is.
But like,
how can you
nobody took him toe to toe?
Because we live in the here and now,
right?
It was like the first time in 5 years somebody had gone to Homestead against him. So I think like subconsciously everybody was pulling for you at that time.
I mean, we're gonna go through his Hall of Fame induction, right? And
next year,
and they're just gonna look at all the stats and be like, whoa, how do we
He's
how
now
do we
just
not just get on our knees and
Bow to the man.
down to this guy? And I'm like, damn
mean
it,
that
why did I have to race in this era?
Exactly.
Shoot.
How many championships would you have if he,
A lot.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's a whole nother topic for another day. But do you think that – I'll shift gears a bit. Do you think your potential to leave a legacy as an owner is higher or different than a race car driver?
Yeah, probably, because I mean, listen, we're talking about one of the greatest of all time, and people just forget all about it. I think the ownership certainly allows you to have a longer runway of relevance in the sport, but I mean, I never envisioned I'd be back in this position to be able to employ the people I do and build a race team from the ground up. I mean, this is a truly ground up build that we're doing with this race team, and so I always knew I wanted to run a business again. I didn't know if it was going to be a trailer shop or, a car
Coffee
dealership
shop.
or whatever it might be. But I quickly, put the pieces of the puzzle together with Toyota and said that, this is what I want to do. And appreciate
Obviously,
them being part
healthy
of that.
financial investment on your end to make it happen. It's a tremendous bet in the sport. Why did you feel like you wanted to make it?
Well, I just felt like the stars aligned for me in particular. I know that when LFR went out of business, that left a void at Joe Gibbs Racing's Alliance program, and Bubba Wallace was a free agent at the end of the year. He's with Pro Sport, and I'm with Pro Sport, and I knew that there was some sponsorship linked to that. Not only that, I believe that Bubba was a talented driver that deserved a good shot in a good car, and so I wanted to give him that, and ultimately we had to make sure we had put the funding together. I have funds, but I don't have Michael Jordan funds, right? So, we're in this deal together. It's one for you, one for me. And so, as we continue to invest in this sport, like it's a risk for me. It is a risk. It's a blip on the radar for him, but it is. They didn't come in here to lose money. They ultimately placed a bet that this thing is going to head back up in the right direction. I think it is. Great viewership this weekend at Indy Road Course. We saw over 3 million. So I think that it is paying off, in the assets. How can we get the year to year better shape so we don't have these Kyle Busch situations? That's what our long-term goal is to change.
How involved is old MJ?
He's not involved in the day-to-day. Curtis Polk is my guy on that. But we communicate every week simply about he has a lot of questions because he's a race fan first. That's why he's in this sport, is he's a fan of the sport. He believes in the sport. He's a big fan of Steve Phelps and his vision for growing this sport. So I think that he found the correct avenue, and I found the right partner.
Yeah, no, I mean, kudos to you just for bringing my man in there. I mean, what a huge partner for yourself as well as the sport.
So there's 2 new owners this year, and I think through the 2010s, I feel like our sport is in a better spot than it's ever been. You've been part of it for 15, 16 years now, and the ownership, everything got a little stale through the 2010s, and even the ownership did a little bit. Schedule, cars, and I think with you and Justin Marks coming in, it's been, you see the way he runs his team, see the way you run your team. It has definitely sparked the sport. But what do you accredit the success to Trackhouse to? Because I didn't see that coming.
Yeah.
Was it, like you said, you're built from the ground up, and he bought a turnkey operation with people in place.
I try to equate, although we came in at the same time, we came in very differently. And I trust me, I wish at many days that I came in and did it like Justin Marks, because he was very smart. And I always said that we both went into the grocery store and wanted to buy a pizza, and he found the most perfect pizza for him in the frozen food section. And I thought, hey, I got a bright idea. I'll make one from scratch. And so I want to go. I'm still picking out the cheese and the pepperoni on mine. That's how early I am in this process. He cooked his,
and he's eating the Red Baron.
He's loving the way it tastes, and I'm so damn jealous because he turned a good operation into a great operation. And so kudos to him and Ty and that whole team, because they've Ganassi was good, but he's really, I mean, they didn't have the performance that Trackhouse is getting out of that group, and they brought some new people in and also took on some new guys. So I think that some of the success can be attributed to the way that Chevrolet is sharing information. I think that they were actually in their building for a bulk of the season. So certainly, you know, when you're in the building, you've got some inside information there. So I think that they've just done a fabulous job. I certainly respect Justin as much as I respect Joe Gibbs.
Let's unbury some hatchets, shall we?
I got one question that I want to ask based off of the building the pizza question. If you look ahead to 24, are you building another car? Are we going to a third car team, or is it? I mean, Kurt, he's getting older, but he's proven he can win. Bubba, young talent who's proven that he can win, and you've announced that Tyler Reddick, our guest coming up soon, is going to be part of the team. Is that building a third team, or is it replacing a driver?
I don't know. I mean, this is what we're talking about. I mean, this is what we used to do back in the old days. I just said, I'm going to get them, and I'll figure out the details later. And I wish I knew what the details were. Would we love to expand? Absolutely. You know, I think that that's something that we would like to do. Does it make financial sense to us before we know what the model looks like? Probably not. But who knows? Who knows where this deal goes? And I just know that I wanted them, and I just was going to do whatever it took to get them, and you know that's the way it's supposed to be.
What's the thought and motive behind getting a guy like that early? Is it to keep him off the block of talking to other teams?
He was already on the block. He was already, talking to other teams, and we were one of them. And I knew in particular that the end of 2023 is going to be a big free agent market with a lot of good seats open on big teams. And I want to go out and bid against Rick Hendrick and Joe Gibbs and all those guys? No.
Yeah. Well, it's obvious now he's won races, but the talk had to start when he was not winning races and maybe even losing them in tough ways. So I see him and Bubba a lot alike, like very good, very talented, struggle with confidence at times, and sometimes struggle with mental strength.
Yeah, I mean, that's something that I feel like Bubba's actually come a long way with in just this year. I mean, certainly Nashville, and he's had – listen, we've given him every excuse to throw us under the bus with the issues that we've had. But we came out of Nashville with some tough conversations and said, this is the way that, we need you to kind of represent us. And he's gone on to be top 10, top 5, top 10, top 5. So he's on a good roll right now. But
what do you tell Bubba?
It ain't always going to be like that. What we got to get is like, well, when you have a bad race and we screw up again or you mess up in qualifying, like how can we still just we're good, everything's good. We're on a positive trajectory, and his career and his performance is on a positive trajectory.
When you're in those meetings having those hard conversations, are you wearing a driver's hat, a friend hat, owner's hat?
Just the owner. I mean, I have to differentiate friendship in that instance. I have to get the respect from my drivers just simply because, I'm putting my livelihood on the line to give you an opportunity. And so I need to make sure that I've got the respect of my drivers.
Are you thinking, I should have started a trailer shop?
A lot less capital investment if I would have done
for that or a coffee shop of some sort, DH's roasts or something like that. Let's get into some unburying some hatchets. You talked about respect, something that you may that's something you always deal with to try to gain, try to give throughout the course of your career. You were talking about trying to not lose the respect of the garage when you have run-ins with different drivers. Obviously, Ross Chastain is the hot topic. Sorry we don't have some guy on a guitar writing lyrics for you like Door Bumper Clear had. Chuck can write, Dog Ear can write you a song here later. But Pocono Turn 1 is what it is. I thought it was a very classy way of wrecking somebody. In my point of view, you don't have to even answer the question. But that's a hatchet. Do you think that it's buried at the moment?
I'm not sure. I really am not sure. I just you'll kind of know when we race around each other again, I guess. Certainly, I think I heard, Dale Jr. and his guy arguing about this, and I confirmed to Dale Jr., but he's the only that knows truly. But listen, at the end of the race, I'm looking, and before the caution came out, and I'm I'm catching Ross while saving fuel. I'm catching him, and I mean, I certainly am thinking, I am not going to let you win, and I'm going to win. And so, in the moment, though, you know, I only had one objective, and that was I want to enter turn one side by side. That's if I can.
Because you weren't the control car.
I was not the control car. I want to enter side by side, and so my objective, and call it intentional, not intentional, was that I just wasn't going to give them 1 inch of space, not one. And so I knew whoever came out of turn 2 with the lead was probably going to win.
Yeah.
And certainly I wanted to make sure that he knew and the field knew that I'd kind of reached my limit, and I have to get some of the respect back. And those are conversations I had with him. I said that, listen, it's not just you. I'm mad at Bowman. I'm mad at Briscoe. I mean, for 2 very legit reasons. Bowman easily could have took us out of the Final Four, by not just being aware with 5 laps to go at Martinsville. Like, it's just, I know the win is important to you, but I've spent my whole season trying to get to the Final Four, and I was out after I got crashed, and I had to get it back through that restart. And then, the Briscoe thing was that cost us the regular season championship. And I'm like, damn it. So that's twice, and then you get me twice. That's in the last 10 months.
Yeah.
I've had it, and I haven't done anything about it. Clearly, I'm not sending a message back to the field that, I can be just run over. I'm sending the message back that it's okay, and I'm just not going to be okay with it because, and I said, to not get too much into our conversation, but I said, listen, I'm not saying your way is wrong and my way is right. We got to figure out how to coexist.
Yeah.
Because we're going to be in those racing situations quite a bit. And since the 2 times that he got me, we have been around each other a lot because, I mean, that's just, we're both up front.
Yeah.
And so we have to figure out how to coexist. And after I had that conversation, Atlanta happens, I'm like, you got to be kidding me. We just talked about this, And so clearly it just, there's just something that short-circuited there that, led to, ending my day.
Speaking of Dale Jr., I think he said it best when he said it was you were getting him back with a scalpel instead of a hammer.
Yeah.
I think that was a good way to put it because you're crafty. You've been doing this a long time. You're not going to drive in there and run in the back of them and spin them out, but you might move them up a little bit.
I've tried a few times.
Yeah. But all of a sudden, you move them up a little bit, and all of a sudden the fence is there.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
But I don't want to dig up some past stuff, but you two had a bad run-in because I remember talking with him about it.
Race cars.
It was just on Twitter because
it was about whoop straps because we're both wearing them right now. That's how it started.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah. You guys are. Yeah.
Let's put some context around it, shall we? So I screenshotted my whoop strap, and it was a hot day. Average heart rate was, I don't know, 185 or something, right? And
you're an animal. You can maintain that, by the way.
Well, I was fatter back then and not
CrossFit.
But
also, give me a break.
He's a CrossFit.
Can't talk to me about fat, bud.
So I had no air conditioner, just a straight up blower, 32 car. We were fairly low budget. We probably got the helmet blower from the used parts place, right? So I put it up there, and you subtweeted me something like, because I was playing in the basketball league, that's why you fall out the fourth quarter or something like that.
Something like that, yeah.
I took offense to that. So we go back and forth, and I said something to the effect of, if I was driving your car, it wouldn't be so high. I don't think you took it as I intended. It was a miss.
That's correct. And which we talked about is that I hit a button with you, and then you hit a button with me.
Yes.
And
so I was talking about you. I bet you the interior cockpit of your car was less than a nice, not like a nice insulated FedEx 11 car from Joe Gibbs Racing was probably not insulated as well as the 32 car from Go Fast, right? That's my point. He thought. Then we started down a path of oh, you think you could do what I do in my car, which I never said that. Yeah. But next thing we know, him and I were about to fight each other out in his driveway because I was spouting my mouth off in the media and saying shit that I shouldn't have said. But I guess we didn't really even talk about it too much. We just kind of let time heal that wound. But
now you fly on a plane together.
We just had one. I mean, we talked it out. I think it was at Homestead, and I think we.
Yeah. We got pulled actually to the motorhome.
But no, I was just I understood. I left that motorhome in Homestead understanding that, okay, clearly I understand why you got triggered, and then he heard why I got triggered by what he said. Because I got triggered by, oh, wait a minute, you think that I just, anybody in my car could do what I do.
Yeah.
That belittles me and my what I've worked for my whole life, right? And so it was a trigger, it just went back and forth.
Why are race car drivers so sensitive?
Oh gosh, I don't know.
At what point? So I think it's a good thing that you and Ross have someone. I thought it was a good thing when you and Joey. It's a good thing for the sport, but there's also a point where it becomes destructive. And what point is that? Obviously, every situation is different. And at what point is it time for NASCAR to step in or stay out of it?
Listen, they've been very vocal and said it's a self-policing sport. That pretty much tells us that it's on you to put it in your own hands. Now, what we saw with the 9 at Road America, and then what we saw with the 42 trucking at IRP, that is not okay.
Yeah,
not okay whatsoever. So, that's just that's a little disappointing to see drivers do that. But what self-policing means is that you go into turn 1 at Pocono and you just don't leave that guy any room, and it works itself out.
No doubt. Well,
was it different? I guess when we talked about respect earlier, how was it different in the coach lot when you first started? Like how would that be self-policing? Like Terry Labonte come over and knock on your bus door, and you don't want to mess with Terry
I think
Labonte,
that
Ricky
as
Rudd.
our sport, we went through phases, right? At the beginning, when I came in the sport, like it was a face-to-face interaction right out of the car, and drivers went at it. And then next thing you know, crews started getting involved in it 5 years later. And then all of a sudden it was like, all right, everyone just needs to stay separated from everyone.
And then we'll tweet at each other.
Yeah. And then social media just took over as the big bully.
Yeah. Well, your time is valuable, man. You spent a lot of time with us. But before you go, I asked 2 questions to everybody. Number 1, what's the most embarrassed you've been at the racetrack?
Ooh. Boy, I tell you, this weekend's a top fiver, but
yeah, but that's to you, though. That's not to the onlooker. I'm talking like publicly tail between your legs, wishing you hadn't done it.
I mean, Homestead 2010, just tail between my legs because Jimmy just he got the best of me those last couple weeks. I mean, Martinsville, obviously with Chase, I would say that although not intentional, I look back on it and I'm like, man, I just wish I wouldn't have been so aggressive to try to. I felt like, holy crap, this is my way to get to the Final Four. I'll be honest with you. That was in 2017. Would that be accepted in today's world?
Yeah.
Well, not to him.
No.
But
nowadays,
I mean, nowadays people just like,
got to
do whatever it takes.
Talking about the 9?
Yeah.
He moved the 2 car out of the way before you got him.
I'm well aware of that.
So
I'm well aware of that.
Everybody,
that doesn't. I
don't feel bad for that some bitch one bit on that whole situation. I said that from day one.
I agree with that.
You reap what you sow.
And so my perspective, I was right behind it. I saw it. Yeah. And as drivers, you do see that, like, oh, you're well.
Yeah.
By the way, that's why Zane used up the 4 this week.
Right.
Because I just watched you take that guy out. So
both of them made a critical decision to pick the outside on a restart. So that's their own fault as a short track.
Short track.
But we weren't having a great season in 2017, and I was like, I'm in the final 8, and I'm like, if I win this race, I can punch my ticket because I was not confident I was going to get there on points. And so I went in there, and I'm like, I'm going to go in there and ride his bumper, and right in the middle, I'm gonna just shove him up. And I don't care. You can go back and look. He checked up early, and I got on him. I'm like, oh, he's done.
Yeah.
And I spun him out, and that was one where it's just like, damn it. This is forever going to tarnish me with this, with this fan
80%
base.
80% of the fan base.
Yeah, but
sport.
It doesn't matter. And listen, I got my payback. He wrecked me the following week at Phoenix, and I didn't make the Final Four when I was going to make it on points anyway. So, it all squared up there, and we got in a better place, me and him.
Last lighthearted question. If you had to pick one racetrack and one race car to race out, where are you going the rest of your life? Like every weekend?
I'm going to race at Darlington with the 2006 car, 2007 car, 900 horsepower, little downforce, just I mean, can't touch the gas around that track.
The old Twisted Sister car.
Oh, yes.
And there you have it. Denny Hamlin, thanks for your time, buddy.
Thank you.
This is Stacking Pennies with Denny Hamlin.